15 years ago, the galaxy had known fear and awe in equal measure for one being, Queen Lyra of the Thalaran Empire. Her name was whispered across star systems, her rule absolute, her intelligence unmatched. Planets prospered under her guidance, yet they also trembled at her wrath. Lyra had been ambitious, determined to expand her empire and crush any who opposed her. But power comes with a cost, and even the greatest rulers can fall. It all began with a rebellion, a coalition of smaller systems that had grown tired of Lyra's strict rule. They thought they could challenge her. They were wrong. Lyra's forces crushed them swiftly, leaving behind a memory of fear that would last for generations. Yet victory often hides a deeper weakness. Among the rebels was a faction of interstellar diplomats who sought justice not through war, but through law. They appealed to the Galactic Council, an assembly that oversaw the balance between civilizations. Lyra's harsh actions had drawn their attention. The council moved quickly. They devised a punishment that would strip Lyra of her power without ending her life. Her sight was taken, her ability to bear heirs removed, and she was sent to a remote moon colony far from the center of her empire. It was a harsh punishment, one that left her not only blind but powerless, stripped of everything she had ever known. The once mighty queen was reduced to survival, her only companions the cold winds and silent rocks of the desolate moon. Lyra's mind, however, remained sharp. Blind though she was, she remembered everything. She remembered the stars, their patterns and light, even though she could no longer see them. She remembered the voices of her advisors, the steps of her enemies, the whisper of betrayal that had led to her downfall. She had lost her throne, but she had not lost her mind. In the quiet solitude of exile, she began to reflect on her past, her decisions and the mistakes that had brought her to this place. Regret was a bitter companion, but it was also a teacher. The moon itself was unforgiving. Temperatures swung wildly and storms could appear without warning, sweeping across the barren landscape. Lyra learned to navigate by sound, by touch, and by memory. She mapped the terrain in her mind, memorized the location of hidden caves and rock formations, and learned to find water and shelter in the harshest conditions. She became a master of survival, though survival alone was not enough. Loneliness gnawed at her, a constant reminder of all she had lost. One day, while searching for shelter before a violent storm, Lyra stumbled upon an old archive buried in the rocks. It was ancient, left by a species long forgotten, yet it contained knowledge that fascinated her. Among the records, she found mention of a human scientist named Jaden. He was known across several star systems for his work in restoring lost senses and repairing damaged bodies, even among alien species. At first, she was skeptical. Humans were limited, fragile creatures compared to her empire's advanced technology. Yet the idea sparked something within her, a faint hope that she had not felt in years. For months, Lyra studied the fragments of information. She traced Jaden's movements, read old reports of his experiments, and imagined the possibilities. Could he restore what had been taken from her? Could she see again? The questions burned in her mind, filling her with a determination that surprised even her. She began planning, quietly, meticulously, for a chance to seek him out. The thought of reclaiming even a small part of what she had lost gave her a purpose beyond survival. Meanwhile, the galaxy continued its rhythm. The Thalaran Empire had moved on without her, ruled now by governors appointed by the Council. Her former subjects had adapted to the new order, though whispers of the fallen queen persisted in quiet corners of space. Traders and explorers spoke of a blind queen surviving alone on a harsh moon, her story a cautionary tale of ambition and downfall. Few believed she would ever return. Few considered that even in exile, Lyra's mind remained unbroken. As the years passed, Lyra honed her body as well as her mind. She learned to hunt, to track, to climb the rocky cliffs that surrounded her isolated home. She developed a keen sense of hearing, able to detect movement across vast distances. Her other senses sharpened to compensate for the loss of sight. Yet despite these abilities, she remained aware of her vulnerability. One misstep, one miscalculation, and she could die alone, forgotten in the cold. The memory of her punishment drove her to patience, strategy, and careful observation. Every rock, every wind pattern, every subtle sound became part of a map she carried entirely in her mind. It was during one of her explorations that she intercepted a transmission. It was faint, Almost imperceptible, a signal bouncing between satellites. Lyra strained to interpret it, focusing every ounce of her attention. And there it was. A reference to a human alive in her sector of space. The possibility that it could be Jaden sent a thrill through her. She could hardly believe it. For the first time in 15 years, a tangible path appeared before her, a chance to reclaim a piece of herself that she had thought forever lost. The plan formed slowly. Lyra would need to escape the moon. The Council's guards patrolled irregularly, relying on her perceived weakness. Her reputation as a blind, powerless exile made them underestimate her. She studied their patterns, memorized patrol schedules, and tested the limits of the moon's environmental hazards. The dangers were immense: treacherous cliffs, sudden storms, and predators adapted to the barren world. Yet Lyra, with her intellect and patience, felt confident she could manage. Hope had sharpened her resolve. The night before her escape, she sat atop a ridge, feeling the cold wind whip across her face. She could not see the stars, but she could feel their pull, their rhythm. She remembered the nights she had spent on her throne, gazing at the galaxy with confidence and power. Now the same galaxy seemed distant but not unreachable. She whispered her plans to herself, practicing each step in her mind. Escape, find the human, restore herself. Simple words, but a monumental task. The fire within her burned brighter than ever. When dawn broke, Lyra began her journey. Each step was deliberate, every movement calculated. She avoided guards and natural dangers alike, her mind a constant map of sound, smell, and memory. Hours became days as she traversed the harsh terrain. She survived storms, navigated cliffs, and evaded creatures that thrived in the moon's harsh environment. Every night, she rested in hidden shelters she had discovered over the years, conserving strength for the journey ahead. The thought of finding Jaden kept her going, a beacon in the endless gray. On the 10th day, she reached the edge of a canyon she had never crossed before. The drop was immense, the rocks jagged. A misstep here would mean certain death. She paused, sensing the wind and listening to the echoes of distant rocks. Slowly, carefully, she began to descend, each handhold and foothold memorized in her mind before she committed to it. Hours passed, but eventually she reached the bottom safely. She allowed herself a small smile, a rare expression in years of solitude. One more step, and she would be free from the confines of her punishment. At the canyon's end, she found an old landing pad, long abandoned, with remnants of ships scattered across its surface. It was here that she planned to find a ship capable of taking her off the moon. She approached the vessels cautiously, aware that any sudden movement could trigger an alarm. Her hands traced the contours of one craft, memorizing the controls. She recalled reports of human technology, their clever designs and adaptability. With care, she activated the ship, its systems lighting up with a low hum. The vehicle responded to her touch, ready for the journey she had been planning for years. As she prepared to lift off, Lyra paused. The wind carried a subtle sound, a warning from the natural world she had come to respect. She adjusted her course, dodged a collapsing rock formation, and engaged the ship's engines. With a surge of energy, she rose into the sky, leaving the moon behind. The galaxy stretched before her, vast, unknown, and filled with possibilities. For the first time in 15 years, Lyra felt more than survival. She felt purpose, a chance to reclaim what had been stolen from her. Her mind raced with thoughts of Jaden, the human who could restore her sight. The possibilities of what could come after were endless. Would she regain her power fully? Could she return to the galaxy not as a ruler of fear, but a leader of respect? The questions burned in her mind, but she did not let them distract her. She had survived exile. She had mastered the impossible. Now she would confront the next challenge with the same patience, intelligence, and determination that had made her queen once before. The journey ahead was unknown, dangerous, and filled with uncertainties. But Lyra, blind and exiled though she had been, had hope again. And hope, she realized, could be more powerful than any throne. Cliffhanger. As her ship cut through the darkness of space, a faint signal appeared on the radar, a human presence, moving toward her. Could it be the scientist she had read about all those years ago? The possibility sent a shiver of anticipation through her. After 15 years of darkness, Lyra's path was finally illuminated, and nothing could stop her now. Lyra's ship glided silently through the black void of space, the stars stretching endlessly before her. The signal had grown stronger, a faint rhythmic pulse that hinted at life. Her heart beat faster than it had in years. For 15 long years she had lived in darkness and solitude. Now she was finally on the brink of finding the one human who might restore her sight. The source of the signal was a small outpost, orbiting a neutral planet in the outer rim. It was old, constructed from worn metal and reinforced domes, a relic of a bygone era. Lyra's sensors picked up movement inside. She could see the faint shapes of figures moving about, one of them human. The description matched the fragments she had read in the archives. Jaden, the scientist. Her hope surged. Lyra's ship landed quietly on the outer edge of the outpost. She stayed in the shadows, listening. The human moved with precision, scanning devices and adjusting equipment. Lyra had expected a frail, timid creature, but Jaden was strong, confident and cautious. Her mind raced with plans. She could approach him openly, reveal her identity, or she could wait, observe and earn his trust first. She chose patience. Years of survival had taught her that caution was as vital as courage. Over the next few days, Lyra shadowed the outpost, learning the routines of its inhabitants. She discovered the outpost was a research station, dedicated to repairing and restoring life in both humans and alien species. Jaden was at its center, a solitary figure among machines and monitors. He was meticulous, focused, and unwavering. Lyra realized that he was not only capable but compassionate, a trait she had long thought extinct among rulers and scientists alike. Finally, she decided it was time. She entered the outpost under the cover of night, careful not to trigger alarms. Her heightened senses guided her through the corridors. She approached Jaden's laboratory, where he was absorbed in work. Taking a deep breath, she spoke in a calm voice. "I am Lyra." Jaden turned sharply, his eyes widening. "Lyra, the Queen?" he asked, disbelief and curiosity mingling in his tone. "Yes," she said. "I have come to seek your help." Jaden studied her, taking in her voice, her posture, her presence. "You are blind," he observed, almost stating the obvious, "and exiled." "Why now?" "Because I have survived," Lyra replied, "and because I believe you can help me regain what was taken." Her words were simple, but they carried the weight of 15 years of hardship. Jaden hesitated. Humans were cautious with aliens, especially ones who had ruled with power and fear. But there was something about Lyra, her intelligence, her presence, her determination, that made him consider the possibility. He nodded slowly. "If you are truly seeking restoration, then we may be able to work together." "But it will not be easy," Lyra smiled faintly. "Nothing worthwhile ever is." The next days were filled with preparation. Jaden explained the technology he had been studying, ancient alien devices designed to restore senses, long thought lost to time. The device required activation within a long-abandoned ruin on a distant planet. The journey would be dangerous. Automated defenses, environmental hazards, and unstable energy fields guarded the technology. But Lyra had faced impossible odds before. She was ready. As they traveled, Jaden and Lyra began to understand each other. Jaden saw the years of exile etched into her demeanor, the survival skills that no human could match. Lyra saw the compassion, intelligence, and curiosity that made Jaden unique among humans. Slowly, a fragile trust grew between them, a partnership built not on fear but on necessity and mutual respect. The planet was harsh, its surface scarred by tectonic activity and violent storms. The ruin they sought lay deep within a canyon, its entrance hidden beneath layers of rock and debris. They approached cautiously, Lyra sensing the terrain through the vibrations in the ground, Jaden reading the energy fields with his instruments. Every step required precision. One misstep could trigger traps or collapse the fragile structure above them. Inside the ruin, the air was thick and stale, the darkness almost complete. Lyra's heightened senses allowed her to guide Jaden through narrow corridors and crumbling stairways. They encountered automated defense drones, relics of a long-dead civilization. Jaden's skill with technology allowed them to deactivate the devices, but each encounter reminded them of the ruin's dangers. Lyra felt the familiar thrill of challenge, the focus she had developed over years of exile sharpening her mind and reflexes. Hours passed as they delved deeper. They discovered ancient chambers filled with devices beyond their comprehension, machines that hummed with dormant energy, walls etched with alien symbols, and conduits that pulsed faintly like veins. Jaden studied the inscriptions, piecing together the function of the machinery. Lyra, though blind, sensed the patterns, the rhythm of energy flowing through the walls. Together, they formed a synchronized understanding, combining intellect and instinct. At the heart of the ruin, they found it, a chamber containing the central device. Its core was a crystalline structure, glowing faintly with energy that seemed alive. Lyra could feel it vibrating in the floor, thrumming with potential. Jaden approached cautiously, reading the interface. "This device can restore your sight," he explained, "but activating it will trigger a planetary defense system. The entire ruin could collapse and the shockwave could reach the surface." Lyra's hand rested lightly on the crystal. "I understand. I have faced death before. I am ready." Together, they began the activation process. Jaden manipulated the controls while Lyra aligned the energy conduits with precision. Sparks flew as the device hummed to life, beams of energy crisscrossing the chamber. The vibration grew stronger, resonating through their bodies. Lyra could feel the energy interacting with her, probing the neural pathways that had been dormant for 15 years. Suddenly, alarms blared, and the ruin shook violently. Debris fell from the ceiling, and energy pulses surged unpredictably. Jaden shouted over the din, "We have to stabilize it." Now, Lyra focused, reaching out with senses beyond sight. She directed energy flows with subtle adjustments, guided by intuition and the knowledge she had accumulated over years of survival. Jaden followed her lead, trusting her instincts as much as his instruments. The two worked in unison, a dance of intellect, instinct, and courage. After what felt like an eternity, the device reached stability. A beam of light enveloped Lyra, and for the first time in 15 years she perceived the faintest glow. Shapes, colors, and shadows began to form in her mind. Slowly, cautiously, her sight returned, not fully, but enough to see the contours of the chamber, the outline of Jaden, and the glowing crystal. Lyra's breath caught. The world she had imagined for years, the stars, the planets, the galaxies were there again, tangible and real. Tears ran down her face, though she could now see them. Jaden watched silently, a mix of relief and awe in his expression. They were not yet safe. The chamber trembled as the ruin's defenses attempted one final strike. Lyra and Jaden moved quickly, coordinating their escape through collapsing corridors. Lyra's newly restored sight allowed her to navigate hazards with precision, while Jaden's technical skill neutralized the last automated threats. Together, they emerged from the ruin just as the ground shook violently, sending rocks tumbling into the abyss. Outside, the planet's surface had changed. Dust and debris filled the air, storms churned across the horizon, and the ruin was buried once more. Lyra looked around, taking in the vast, harsh beauty of the world. She had faced death and emerged victorious, her sight restored, her hope renewed. Jaden stood beside her, silent but supportive, their bond strengthened by the ordeal. As they prepared to leave the planet, Lyra reflected on everything she had endured: exile, blindness, loneliness, and despair. Yet all of it had led her here to this moment of rebirth. She realized that survival had taught her more than power ever could, the value of trust, patience, and collaboration. For the first time, she considered the possibility of a future not defined by fear and ambition, but by wisdom and partnership. The journey ahead would not be easy. The galaxy had changed, and old enemies still lurked in the shadows. But Lyra's resolve was stronger than ever. With Jaden by her side, she would face whatever challenges awaited. She had reclaimed a piece of herself, but the adventure was only beginning. Cliffhanger. As their ship lifted off, Lyra's instruments detected another signal, faint, distant, but unmistakable. It came from a region controlled by a rival faction that had once sought to destroy her. The past was not done with Lyra yet, and the galaxy would soon witness the return of the queen who had been blind no longer. Lyra's sight had returned, but the galaxy she now saw was not the same as the one she had left 15 years ago. Stars stretched in endless lines, ships traced paths between planets, and distant planets glimmered like jewels. Yet beneath this beauty she sensed turbulence, threats waiting, old enemies scheming, and the consequences of her past actions lingering like shadows. The weight of history pressed upon her, but she no longer felt powerless. Beside her, Jaden piloted their ship with quiet confidence. The human had proven his skill, his courage, and his trustworthiness during their ordeal on the ruined planet. Lyra had come to respect him deeply, not just as a scientist but as a companion who had faced danger without hesitation. Their partnership was unusual, a former alien queen and a human scientist, but it was strong, built on mutual respect, shared challenges, and the unspoken understanding that survival demanded unity. Lyra's mind raced with plans. Restoring her sight was only the first step. The galaxy still remembered the fear she had once commanded. There were factions that would seek to challenge her, territories that had slipped from her control, and whispers of rebellion that could destabilize entire systems. But Lyra was no longer the queen ruled by ambition and fear. She was a queen tempered by exile, by survival, and by the realization that power meant little without wisdom and foresight. Their journey took them to the outer sectors, where reports of rogue factions had grown louder. The signals Lyra had detected earlier led them to a small fleet, controlled by former enemies of her empire. These were the very beings who had celebrated her downfall, believing she would never return. Lyra's eyes scanned the ships, her vision sharp and precise. She noticed weak points in their formations, gaps in communication, and patterns in their patrols. 15 years of exile had honed her instincts for observation, strategy, and survival. Jaden noticed her intensity. "You're already planning," he said, a hint of amusement in his voice. "I have to," Lyra replied. "They will not wait for me to gain strength. The galaxy moves quickly. I cannot allow it to pass me by." Together, they devised a strategy. Lyra would approach the fleet under the guise of a neutral envoy while Jaden monitored their movements, prepared to intervene if necessary. Her restored sight gave her confidence, but she relied on more than vision. Her intuition, intelligence, and understanding of alien behavior guided her. She was not simply seeking revenge. She was seeking to restore balance and demonstrate that her return did not threaten peace but offered opportunity for cooperation. The approach was tense. The fleet's commanders were cautious, suspicious of the unexpected presence of the exiled queen. Lyra's voice, calm yet commanding, carried authority as she addressed them. She spoke of her exile, her restoration, and her desire to rebuild alliances. Many were skeptical, expecting cunning or manipulation, but Lyra's honesty and composed demeanor gradually softened their resistance. Meanwhile, Jaden ensured their ship remained undetected by sensors, adjusting communications to intercept potential threats. The two worked in perfect synchrony, combining her charisma and intelligence with his technical expertise. Slowly, the fleet's attitude shifted from hostility to cautious curiosity. Lyra realized that trust was fragile, but it could be earned, not demanded. As negotiations progressed, Lyra sensed a sudden disturbance, a signal on the edge of the fleet's perimeter. She recognized it immediately, a strike team approaching at high velocity, intent on sabotage. Her instincts took over. "Jaden, prepare for evasive maneuvers," she ordered. The attack came swiftly. Small ships darted from the shadows, weapons firing in rapid succession. Lyra's eyes caught every detail: the trajectory of missiles, the openings in enemy shields, the faint glint of solar panels that reflected energy pulses. She directed the fleet with precision, issuing commands to counter the threat. Jaden's hands flew over the controls, adjusting their shields and communications in perfect harmony with her orders. The skirmish was intense, but brief. Lyra's strategy, combined with Jaden's technical skill, allowed them to neutralize the attackers without significant damage. The fleet's commanders watched in awe as the once-exiled queen demonstrated not only survival skills, but leadership, insight, and the ability to act decisively under pressure. After the battle, Lyra and Jaden landed on a nearby neutral station. The station hummed with life. Traders, diplomats, and explorers moved about, oblivious to the galaxy-altering events unfolding nearby. Lyra took a moment to breathe, observing the people around her. She realized how much she had missed: the sights, the sounds, the vibrancy of life. Her restored vision was not merely a physical gift. It symbolized a new beginning, an opportunity to see the world and her place in it clearly. Jaden approached her. "You've changed," he said softly. not just in what you can see, but in how you see the galaxy. Lyra nodded. 15 years in darkness teaches more than any throne ever could. I have learned that strength is measured not by fear or power, but by wisdom, patience, and the ability to protect those who cannot protect themselves. Their conversation was interrupted by a sudden transmission. A rival faction, one that had once sought to destroy her empire, had detected her return. Their message was clear. The past was not finished with Lyra. The galaxy would test her, challenge her, and perhaps try to destroy her again. But Lyra no longer feared the challenge. She had survived exile, regained her sight, and learned the value of partnership. She was ready. "We leave immediately," she said to Jaden. "We cannot wait. The galaxy does not forgive hesitation." They prepared their ship, plotting a course toward the source of the signal. Lyra felt a mixture of anticipation and resolve. The challenges ahead were unknown, but she had faced the impossible before. Her sight had returned, her mind was sharp, and she had a partner she could trust implicitly. Together, they would confront whatever awaited them, not with fear but with courage and intelligence. As they entered hyperspace, Lyra reflected on the journey that had brought her here. Exile had stripped her of everything, but it had also given her something she had never possessed before: perspective. She had seen power at its height, and she had endured its absence. She had faced death, solitude, and despair, and had emerged stronger, wiser, and more determined. Her restored sight was a symbol of rebirth, but her true strength lay in her understanding of the galaxy, herself, and the value of trust. Jaden glanced at her, sensing her thoughts. "Do you think they will accept you?" he asked. Lyra considered the question carefully. Some will resist, but I no longer need everyone to accept me. I only need those who understand that the future can be better if we work together. Her voice was calm, confident, and filled with quiet authority. The signal ahead grew stronger, revealing a massive fleet positioned near a strategic star system. Lyra's eyes scanned the formation, analyzing strengths and weaknesses. She devised a plan, not one of brute force but of strategy, diplomacy, and calculated risk. She would confront her past without vengeance, but with the clarity and precision that only experience and vision could provide. As they approached the fleet, a small transport ship broke away, approaching them with urgency. Lyra prepared for contact, her heart steady, her mind alert. The pilot, a messenger from the rival faction, delivered a single message. "Queen Lyra, your return has been noted. Prepare yourself. The galaxy remembers." Lyra's lips curved into a small, confident smile. "Then let them remember me as I truly am," she said. Her sight allowed her to see the faces of her crew, the distant stars, and the path ahead. But more importantly, it allowed her to see herself, not as a fallen ruler, but as a survivor, a strategist, and a queen reborn. Jaden stood beside her, ready to follow her into the unknown. Together, they had faced ruin, danger, and the impossible. Together, they would navigate the challenges ahead. The galaxy had changed, but so had Lyra. 15 years of darkness had prepared her for the light, and she was ready to embrace it fully. The ship accelerated, cutting through space toward the fleet. Every star, every shadow, every glimmer of light reminded her of the journey she had undertaken. She had faced exile, blindness, and despair, and she had conquered them. Now, with her sight restored and her resolve unwavering, Lyra was not simply returning to the galaxy. She was returning as a force of hope, intelligence, and calculated power, a queen who had survived the impossible and would shape the future on her own terms. Final cliffhanger. As their ship approached the fleet, Lyra sensed a hidden presence. Cloaked vessel, its intentions unknown, watching her every move. The past was not yet finished with her, and the challenges ahead would test not only her vision but her courage, wisdom, and heart. The galaxy awaited, and Lyra was ready to face it, fully seen, fully alive, and stronger than ever.